Republicans have been jumping on the inequality bandwagon rhetorically. Just the other day, Ted Cruz said that Barack Obama and the Democrats are the party of 1% policies, the top 1%. That inequality, many Republicans have pointed out that inequality has spiked under President Obama. And even Mitt Romney, of all people, when he was deluding himself about going into a presidential run, was actually attempting to address inequality. This sort of mind-boggling chutzpah is being rightly called out because obviously President Obama, for the first time in his presidency, more aggressively, I should say, for the first time in his presidency, in this latest budget, is actually proposing some things that might cut into this problem somewhat, some genuinely progressive taxation, some at least the rhetorical shift on the defining crisis of our time, which is inequality. And Republicans are attempting to capitalize on that. Now, the other obviously ludicrous thing is that this crisis has been happening since the 80s. It's grown under President Reagan, the first Bush, President Clinton, the second Bush, and Obama, because, of course, we're fundamentally operating in a neoliberal economic paradigm, which increases inequality by definition. Now, we have the far right, Reagan, Bush, that's just deregulate and redistribute and push the spoils to the top end of the spectrum even more. And then we have the Clinton model, which was the third way, which is do the same thing, but try to kind of ameliorate it with some social programs here and there. That's basically been Obama's approach. And that has been the debate, and that's why the debate has been so limited, and that's why we've seen the inequality crisis grow, and that's why we've seen the power of the corporate sector really grow unabated. Now, Ramesh Ponnuru, writing in the New York Times, has said, basically, and he's a big Republican thinker and pundit, he's called out the Republicans and said, look, let's not talk about inequality because, first of all, if we're being intellectually honest, we don't care about that issue. In his view, he would say we just care about expanding middle-class living standards and growing the economy. I'll explain why you can't care about those things without caring about inequality in a second. But he cites a very interesting poll that's very revealing, and he says, according to a January CBS New York Times poll, Americans identifying the top issues that face the country, only 3% cited the income gap between rich and poor. That's well below, quote, the 18% who listed the economy and jobs. Now, what's stunning about these numbers is it shows that because Democrats and because the left is still not where it needs to be in this country in terms of real power, that the inequality debate is still discussed as a moral and civic concern, which it profoundly is. Obviously, inequality is destroying and eroding our democracy, which we see like things with HSBC criminals not being prosecuted. But you, in one breath, saying you care about the inequality crisis much less than the economy or jobs is totally contradictory. You are not going to grow a middle-class economy, take people out of poverty, and raise living standards without dealing with inequality. And we have this position, again, where Democrats, through being compromised by corporate money, through being confused in their ideology, because even with these great steps that President Obama has taken, he's still pushing TPP, that Republicans can muddy the waters rhetorically and say, we want to deal with a problem that, of course, they're only committed to making infinitely worse. We need a red line on this. And a red line, of course, it's a start. Slightly more progressive tax code, raise the minimum wage. But here's what else we need. We need universal student debt forgiveness. That would be a massive boon to the economy. We need a massive progressive push in the tax code, which would function as a massive redistribution of income. We need broader debt forgiveness across the entire lower end of the economic spectrum. In Croatia, they recently did this with the poor of that country. We need to aggressively reform the predator economy across the financial and healthcare sectors. And the only real engine that this is going to happen is going to be through some type of labor movement, through revitalizing the traditional one and developing new means of labor movements through cooperative businesses and all sorts of other new emergent forms of business and organizing. And I'm not saying anything that we don't already know, but this anemic democratic thing, which again, credit where credit is due, is being pushed in the right direction. But fundamentally, that third way split the difference thing is never going to work for the crisis. And it's going to allow the Republicans to continue to muddy the waters and not fix the public perception, which is that if you care about the economy and jobs, you must care about inequality, because inequality is going to ensure that there isn't an improvement in wages, economy, and jobs.